the postseason, and fans are chomping at the bit to see the results. 30 minutes on the clock. The NALCS Countdown starts right now.
Meteos and 100 Thieves arrived not long ago. They're aiming for a playoff bye as they face Clutch Gaming and Febivin, who tuned into the EU LCS's final day of the regular season as they were preparing for their matchup. Glory today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NALCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we look at the playoff possibilities and rank the league's junglers until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champion Select. Are you guys ready to kick off the 9th week of the NALCS?
Oh, yeah. Every game counts.
Every game does count.
Dash.
I mean, that said, we could have our playoff picture to some degree decided today. Let's take a look at the games today, which might complete that playoff picture. Up first, 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming duke it out for the postseason positioning, with Team Liquid hoping to earn their spot in the top 6 versus Cloud9, followed by TSM looking to do the same against Golden Guardians later in the day. If you're looking for pro insight, though, during Game 3, look no further than Riot Games 2, where Jacked, of all people, is joined by Hooney and Dardock in the NALCS Lounge. How did you get out of analyst desk duty for that? I don't know. All right, now, as of right now, no playoff bye is locked, as Echo Fox and Cloud9 are at 11-5, only one game ahead of 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming in 3rd, while Counterlogic Gaming sits in 7th, hoping that TSM or Team Liquid go 0-2 on the weekend for their shot at playoffs. When it comes to that playoff picture, though, there are 1,024 scenarios for the remaining 10 games, all conclude with a tie. And Jat, I know you've been running through some simulations. You got some numbers for us.
Yeah, I have been working on this actually all week. There's a lot of stuff happening today, Dash. So as you know, Clutch Gaming, Mark Z, plays 100 Thieves, other side of the board, also in red.
Yep.
Really early on in the scene. We have Europe still happening. They're doing something over there for some reason. There's a lot of question marks going on as well. So follow the string. Clutch, 100 Thieves. Clutch needs to beat 100 Thieves if we are to have the craziest tie.
Okay,
100
both
Thieves
red. Look
then
for a
goes
win.
down to FlyQuest. Remember, FlyQuest, they're aerial creatures. They're near Cloud9. They also have weather in North America. Up top, Echo Fox. Why is he so high? He can't fly. There's a pigeon next to him. Joel or Joel is potentially needed on Skype. That means something. They would fall a really long ways. Also, is it indeed Azale's time to shine with a Scoots face? I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's
Kobe was on COG. There's a lot of pigeons on this board. And follow the money. The money towards Golden Guardians. They need to do something. They need to beat
What
TSM.
could they do? That's the question. Already locked out of playoffs.
COG, L, add the L from Clutch, you get COG. Also, TSM, Jats, interesting. Captain Flowers and a bush. Something is going on.
What's he doing in the bush?
I don't really
Nobody knows.
So you're following this, right, with all
I
this
am.
stuff. Optic Gaming, nothing they do really matters this weekend.
Okay, so
I have no clue.
I have no idea what we actually just
I
learned.
couldn't follow you at all.
That's the problem.
Pull up the graphic. It's actually really simple.
Let's take a look at this graphic. Here you have, in actuality, there is one scenario that results in a 6-way tie. Am I right, Jack?
Yes, there's a 6-way tie. If all of these things happen, it's possible. Team Liquid, TSM go 2-0. Echo Fox goes 0-2. 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming both go 1-1. It could give us 6 teams tied for first with 11 wins. That would need to be settled by teams getting seeded into essentially a playoff light bracket, and it would determine playoff seeding. You'd have teams with byes, first seeds in this theoretical tournament. We'd have to play out.
I mean, so this is exactly what it would look like.
Yeah, if every team ended at 11-7, and then that would actually seed the actual
dankest timeline.
I know, right? Playing playoffs before playoffs?
Yeah, what?
How did we get so lucky?
Best of ones,
All
too.
right, well, one can only hope. Until that point, though, let's go ahead and send it over to Captain Flowers and Azale, who will share their thoughts on how playoffs are shaping up this split.
Thank you very much, Dash. The race for playoffs is as heated as ever as we enter into Week 9, with many teams having already secured their spot and many more still fighting to earn their place here in the postseason. I've got Azale with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those squads and how things might shake out for them once the dust finally settles here.
I'll do my best.
It's going to be a good time for sure. First up, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the teams that we've known for a while, but has never seen the success that they've seen this split until now it's Echo Fox.
Exactly, and they're having really a historic split. They did rebuild the roster. The best they had ever done previously was 7th. They bring in Hooney, they bring in this whole revamped lineup, and they have been killing it this split. They're tied for first place right now, and while they have had some struggles the last couple of weeks, still have been the most dominant team in the NALCS this year.
And while Echo Fox is a team that many fans may recognize the name, but not the success of, because this is their first time really being one of those big contenders, we've also got a couple of new squads like Clutch Gaming making some waves.
Exactly, and Clutch, is a core of players that you have seen in the NALCS. It's kind of the core of Envy with Apollo, Hakuo, and Lyra, but they brought in some really strong solo laners, Fevin from Europe and solo kind of moving up through the NA Challenger scene, and Fevin in particular has been incredible for Clutch, in my opinion, this split. Really is an MVP candidate, and with the strength that he has shown, this team has gone from underrated and people doubting that they could even make the playoffs to challenging for a playoff bye, and it really has been an incredible run.
And talking about teams making a run for the playoffs and being some of the new names in North American LCS, we can't forget about 100 Thieves either.
You definitely can, and this is a brand that has kind of exploded onto the scene. Nadeshot bringing a lot of his fans with them and making good content, and they are a cast of veterans. You have Aframu, you have Meteor, Someday, Ryu. These guys have a plethora of experience and really do know how to lead a team. And then you have Cody's son, who is kind of the young gun for the team and has been performing so well in this split. Statistically, one of the best AD carries in the league for sure. And then Aframu these last couple of weeks really stepping up on playmakers. It feels that this team has kind of found their own at the right time and is challenging to be one of the top teams in the NALCS.
And now that we've talked about these new contenders for playoffs, I want to switch things over, change gears for the last team we're going to talk about, to the most winningest team in North American LCS history, TSM.
Definitely so, and you have to talk about the history when you talk about this team. 10 straight NALCS finals, won 6 out of 10 of those, and that is something that is not to be understated. It is an extremely impressive feat, and this is one of the first years in recent history where you think maybe they could not even make the playoffs, right? Reginald talked about this being the most worrisome year he has faced yet, but this team is coming together, it feels like, at the right time. Despite the fact that they are statistically able to be eliminated from the playoffs, they look so good that you don't really see it happening, but it's going to be a tough week for them, and it's going to be an exciting one.
I think it's going to be an exciting week for everybody, teams and fans alike. We'll see how it all shakes out. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. While we welcome new teams to the postseason, there are battles at the top and the bottom for positioning. So we want to work through some of those scenarios in each of these teams individually as they make their final push towards the postseason.
And starting with Echo Fox at the top, they've been in #1 all season long. This time around, though, in this week, they're playing Papa Chow and Damonte.
New look.
Phoenix and Adrian down for a little bit. And it's
Surprising move for a team that hasn't secured their spot yet in terms of the actual first place or first round bye.
Yeah, they have secured playoffs, and technically that's all that matters, so we'll have to get some more word from Echo Fox whether or not this is something they're looking to stick with, just getting them some time before the end of the regular season, because it's really kind of shocking to make 2 roster moves in mid lane and support in the last week of the regular season.
Very much so. Another team at the top of the table that's been looking shaky recently is C9, however, not making any roster changes or big swap-ups.
Yeah, and this is a team that looked so good at the start of the season, playing around Licorice in the top lane. And they have switched a little bit in recent weeks, picking some more tank picks for Licorice in the top lane, and still getting some of those early game leads, but the cohesion does seem a little bit worse later on in the season.
definitely feels like Licorice is struggling to find his exact role once he's no longer in the laning phase on tanks, and how to play that stuff out has not been the best frontliner.
4 of their 5 losses coming on the back half of the split, looking to end out on a good note. Next up, CLG, still with an outside chance of making it into that 6th place slot.
All right, here's the thing. Academy and the LCS have been very close in terms of what happened in a lot of different storylines. For CLG and CLG Academy, they both started going on these crazy runs in week 7. They were 4-0 heading into the week. CLG Academy went 6-0, but Destiny was also not in their hands, and they got eliminated just through other teams. So if it's going to work out at all the same way, CLG will go 2-0 this weekend, but not make playoffs.
They need a lot of help, either TL or TSMS to 0-2.
That's exactly the point. Yeah. CLG is not in total control here. They need some other stuff to happen. Let's talk about one of those teams that CLG is hoping goes 0-2 in Team Liquid. This is the super team, but they've yet to secure that spot in the playoffs.
They just need that one win, and they were trying to hype themselves up as being the best team in the North American LCS. And as we saw, there's still a chance they could be tied for first at the end of this regular split. But they had that big win against Clutch Gaming last week. if they can have impact, have good performances, I think it opens up so much for them as far as playing around bottom lane and getting Doublelift rolling, but it's been so hard for them to actually put together those big performances.
Tough matchup for them today against Cloud9. Now, one person who will be praying it doesn't come down to Clutch losing out is Coach David Lim, who has sacrificed 3 goats to appease the playoff gods.
I just want the guys to come up with creative solutions to win the games. I think these are, since we're already locked in for playoffs, we should be able to have a little bit more leeway and experimentation, so we shall see how that goes. Whatever Mark predicts will probably be what happens.
Yeah.
I couldn't even listen to what he was saying.
We were talking about the goats, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, he's a superstitious guy. Like, he did not sacrifice 3 playoff goats, but he does know when he's in a pre-game interview, they're undefeated, the Countdown interview, so he made sure to get in there.
Right.
And he knows
but
how
he did mention how important Mark has been to the success of the roster. Now, Clutch Gaming, they're still able to grab a playoff bye of all things. So again, within the, we know, yes, there's that crazy 6-way tie scenario, but some of the more realistic scenarios have smaller amounts of jostling within the positions. And Clutch Gaming is one that has a new org in their first split in the North American LCS, could get a playoff bye.
And they did beat Echo Fox, but Echo Fox has obviously been struggling a lot more. And Febivin, as what is their best player, is someone people have been talking about in the MVP conversation, but they feel like he lacks some of the highs that the other MVP candidates have. And I think that reflects in their play style as well, where they struggle to beat other top teams because your best player is not really your playmaker.
Yeah, and they have been consistent against the bottom teams, and Hakuho is one of the most consistent players I've seen. Even though he is the playmaker for the team, he's one of the lowest in death percentage as far as supports go in the league, and as a playmaker, that's incredibly difficult to do.
Should be a fun matchup then, because today he goes up against Aframu, one of the quintessential support playmakers on, or rather in the North American LCS.
Yeah, and 100 Thieves has had a really up and down and up again year, and they're still in that upward trajectory. Someday had by far his best week last week against Golden Guardians and Optics, so if they get him rolling, that play around bot, gank bot style of having Cody Sunbeam and late game carry will work very well.
Plus we had a Darius. Who can get mad about that? I mean, someday I want more of that, and that's awesome. I want to see more now. Probably shared his thoughts, or rather on how his team is focusing on showing that 100 Thieves is ready for 8.5.
Well, this is a first game on the new patch in A. So I think this is kind of like last time we had the first game of the new patch, we didn't do too well. So this is going to be just kind of revenge for what happened last time. The games this week are pretty high stakes, but we're not really treating them that way. I think it's kind of a bad mentality to be putting so much pressure on a best of 1. So we're going into it like pretty much every other game.
Looking for redemption here on the new patch, as they weren't as successful the first time out following 8.4.
I also like his approach that every game is as important as the other one. They're all worth 1 win in the standings. Yes, this is coming later in the season. It feels like there's more pressure on it, but I like the idea of approaching it the same way as you would approach any other game.
All right, well, there you have it. We're going to step away, but when we return, these two finally share their jungle tier list. The predictions segment gets a special guest, and I gather the win conditions for that battle between third-place teams. Meet us back here after the break.
CLG. The note here is CLG are awful.
Why'd you believe in CLG? CLG is just so desperate for anything to work.
They're most likely out of the playoffs.
CLG, just as a whole, is lost.
You'll be able to get the run down the barrel. Something gets it. Matt able to steal a Golden Guardian. Gonna try and wipe CLG in the pit. It's such a mess.
A lot of people were like writing CLG off as possibly the worst team in the league. We were tied for last place, and it was like, Jesus Christ, CLG needs to just blow up and remove their entire roster and just change everyone.
They're now tied for last place and are pretty close to being locked into missing their first ever playoff.
It's going to be a tough road ahead.
I guess there's just this like weird stigma with our team where it's like when no one believes in us, we do really well.
The Raptor's going to land. It's 1 versus the world. The knockup is in the end. And Counter Logic Gaming going to pull in the impossible comeback. And did you believe it when you believe in them least?
As long as people keep doubting us, we're going to keep winning.
This chain of corruption right on to the Pugmaw. He's going to go down, and that's a double kill for Hoogie.
I mean, now we're 2 games away from possibly making it to playoffs.
I think that we can do it. I think that with the confidence we have and all the wins, they're going to keep stacking on each other, and it's going to be the first time in a long time that we beat TSM. The cherry on top of the cake is that it's when it matters the most.
Let's go. And CLG CLG in last place will knock down the #2 team in NA. CLG are gonna sweep the week, and their hunt for that playoff spot remains strong. It's destroy Echo Fox, making the run a reality.
Let's go, 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 let's go. Let's go!
Nice job.
Let's go! CLG, baby! Let's go! Take player, that's me!
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown. We've made our way back out to the stage one more time to utilize this big old TV to talk about some junglers here in the North American LCS, the one role that we haven't broken down into a tier list. So here they are, Mark and Jat's jungle tier list for this split.
And our usual reminder at the top, this is based off performance, and this time through the first 8 weeks of the split. And I felt like this one was a little difficult to do. The top 4 was easier than the bottom 6, which is usually it's harder to rank the top.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the more team-dependent roles. Junglers often look very bad if their team is struggling to get priority in lanes.
And recency bias was one thing I had to watch out for a lot, trying to take the entire split into account. So some of those bad weeks early on in the split still matter a lot.
It's a good point, especially when a couple of our top teams are struggling. That said, both of you have Dardoch occupying that #1 position on the list. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, despite the recent struggles that Echo Fox has been facing, Dardoch has been a pretty consistent member for the team, and he is an absolute beast in getting his team leads. He has the highest jungle proximity against him, meaning that his laners generate a lot of pressure. People try and stop their laners from pressuring so hard, and then he does a great job covering them. He also camps their lanes. He gets these huge counter ganks off while invading a lot.
Yeah, and we award OP5 at the end of every week. Dardoch has been the OP jungler 5 times in 8 weeks, so he has been head and shoulders above every other jungler this split.
That's an unreasonable number of OP5s, but second on your list, Jad, is actually Spence Caron of C9.
Yeah, and a lot of people were wondering whether or not going to C9 could unlock Spence Caron to play more like he wanted to play, and I think in a lot of ways that is true. He's been invading a lot, still dying, but dying a lot less and in less destructive ways for his team, while generating a lot of pressure. And when you look holistically at C9's early game, they've been very consistently able to get first turret, get a lot of early pressure, have very good objective control, and I think Spence Caron's a pretty big part of that.
The only thing you can say to detract from him is those kind of deaths that you were mentioning, but he still also has the highest forward percentage of junglers, which basically indicates invades, and so he invades a lot, does a lot for his team, and sometimes gets caught out and punished.
Right, taking risks, sometimes gets punished. That said, you've actually got Meteos occupying the second slot, so give me the differential there.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that we were just talking about, those isolated deaths that tend to crop up. Meteos has none. He's almost never caught out of position, never in the wrong place, is a huge playmaker for the team combined with Afromu. The two of them are the reason that 100 Thieves get their early leads more often than not. And recently, as last week, we're seeing that he can go topside if he needs to.
And Jad, let's be honest, this was a guy that people had some concerns about coming into the split, right? Would there be motivation issues? Would he be able to return to form? But we are seeing a bit of a Meteos of old.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, as far as being in safe places, I think the aggression that he would have had back in 2013, taking over games, isn't quite there, but he has played really well.
On the flip side, though, another veteran that we had high expectations for, Xmithy, right? One of the top junglers in 2017, sitting in 4th on your guys' list, so knocked down a peg.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has to do with inconsistency and him not really finding a consistent lane to get ahead in a frequent manner, because I said consistent a lot.
Right.
But he goes top lane, he doesn't necessarily snowball impact. A lot of times his bottom lane is left unprotected and they die a lot. So it's difficult for Xmithy to find those successful cases, but for someone who was so great last split, you would have expected a little bit more, but he's still solidly at 4th.
And that's why, we were talking about this being a very team-centric role. I don't really think Xmithy is worse than he was last split, but Immortals had a very clear play style on what they wanted to do. Doesn't feel like the case on Team Liquid, so he hasn't been having the same impact in games.
Another player that's taken a step down from last split to this split is Contracts. As a rookie, he impressed us quite a bit on Cloud9. This time around on Golden Guardians, not as hot. And you guys actually have a little bit of distance between him.
A whopping
even though
2.
Your lists are pretty similar.
This is probably the biggest difference on the list, and it's only 2, so you can see how we kind of aligned on this. But he has not very impressive stats. He tends to fall behind the early game. XP, CSD, goal differential, whatever you want to point at. He doesn't have strong laners, but he also had a lot of deaths early on in the split and was one of the key factors in why they were struggling so much. He's also a key factor in their resurgence, so he deserves his credit for that.
Yeah, and I think even though Contracts has had some bad games, I give him a little bit more credit for having the good games when I don't think his laners have been performing that well. It is incredibly difficult to play jungler from behind. That's, if you think back to last year, why we had Lyris so high on that old Envy team is because a lot of the time his lanes weren't doing well.
The only thing I'd say is that's why the bottom 6 are so difficult, because everyone has something that they do well, like Rainover's jungle pathing is great, but his team fighting is awful, and he has the highest isolated deaths. Everyone in the bottom 6 has these kind of back and forth points.
Now, in Week 9, players are also going to have to deal with the transition to 8.5. This is a patch that brings in a number of changes, so I want to go through some of them now. What are the most notable changes that you guys see?
Swain! Woo! Hey, everybody, we're going to get some Swain. The biggest change, there's a lot with him. Basically, every ability got changed, but the one that is important is this W's radius got increased, so that you can actually land this consistently now, and that's a huge deal, going from 3 abilities to basically 4, especially when it interacts with his passive and other things.
And the fact that he can be played in mid or top lane. There are not that many flex picks that are currently in the meta. Swain is going to be one. Zoe's also back in a lot of ways, which makes banning a very interesting phase. I want to kind of call attention to the double nerf between Warmogs and Cinderhulk here, because last patch, any tank jungler would just go Cinderhulk into Warmogs, hit that health threshold to be able to get the regen from the Warmog's armor, and you can't do that anymore. Not only is Cinderhulk less max health percentage of a buff, but the Warmog's also takes a lot longer to turn on. So there's a chance that that actually completely changes the jungle meta in the long term with more Warrior or Runic Echo junglers, and that'll have some pretty big implications if that happens.
On top of that, Olaf was already seeing play and bans. He gets a small buff, so probably even more playable. We did see some rune changes for the ADC position, but Mark, I know that in the Academy League, we haven't really seen that amount to much.
Yeah, I mean, they generally mirror each other pretty closely, and there wasn't that much increase in press the attack despite the buff.
And good old Cloud Drake. Nice buff. All right, moving on to predictions, though. This time around, we decided to bring in a special guest. Jat was sitting at a 60% prediction rate. Mark, you were at what?
I was like,
not 60, exactly. But we decided to bring in somebody who was at 60% from across the pond. Deficio lent us a hand, giving us predictions. Let's take a look.
Well, well, well. The North American peasants coming to the superior European analysts for help when it comes to predicting their games. Well, I normally only care about Europe, but in this case here, I can predict the North American games easily, and I can help you guys. Even beat some of these dogs that apparently are better than you guys at predicting games. It's a little bit of a shame, but let me run through the games real quick. Instantly call out who's going to win and get an easy 5 for 5. First, Clutch will win. Second, Echo Fox will win. Third, Team Liquid will win. Fourth, well, there's a bunch of Danes on it, so I gotta pick them. TSM, of course, will win. And the last game is the one I struggle with. This is the tough one, and I think I might need some help, so I'm gonna call my minion here for a second.
That's the fish, yes.
Yes.
That's the fish.
Vedi.
Yes.
Tell me, who do you think will win?
It's Optic, the fish, Optic.
You saying Optic?
Optic, the fish.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, leave again.
Okay.
For the last game, I am going with the CLG, and I'm going to say they will win. And there you go, guys. 5 for 5. The superior analyst here to help you. Enjoy the show.
There you have it. Deficio's picks. How do you guys feel about it?
After 8 weeks, we're at exactly the same percentage.
Well, that's
the point was to beat him.
Yeah, the point was a challenge, not help. We don't need his help. It was that we had beaten all the other challenges you'd put before us.
All right, well, let's compare what we got then, because if I recall correctly, the two of you have predicted, again, the same
It's
5
decided
teams
right away
to win, and Deficio being the only differentials here.
Well,
there's a good shot. There's actually a decent shot. That
North America's
also
standing
the TL
united
game
against him, yeah. So we're going to be on the same page against Deficio.
I actually think we got a good chance. So yes, 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming is an
That's
incredibly
close
game. When David Lim does a pre-countdown interview, they
Doesn't
win.
lose.
When Mark predicts against them, what happens?
I don't know what happens then, but either way.
Pattern.
I mean, let's see. We'll find out soon enough whether or not Deficio is the superior analyst from the league across the pond.
Yeah, I have a little bit of ground to make up on one game behind Jap, but I'm saving that for tomorrow. I want to see how today goes. Get the guaranteed win, stay within striking distance, and look for the upset.
Well, you guys have a differential in that first game of the day. Not you two, but you two and Deficio. So let's go ahead and get into win conditions for that first match of the day. Clutch Gaming versus 100 Thieves. Mark, kick us off.
Yeah, since I am Clutch Gaming's official mascot, I guess, I will be representing them. And for me, the win condition is kill the Cody man, Cody's son. Oh, we're getting 100 Thieves.
Oh, I guess we're starting on the other side.
It's similar. Every time you talk about 100 Thieves winning, you talk about playing around bottom lane, but I feel like this team really unlocks their potential when they can get Someday going. So you can play around bottom lane. You don't have to win bottom lane. You just have to make sure Cody's in a successful place. And then give Someday a counter pick, because he can actually be very good in carry or counter pick matchups.
All right, Mark, I have no idea what you're about to say. Give me your win conditions.
It's kill Cody's son.
Woo!
Yeah, there you go. I won't do the Joker impression because it's awful, but the idea is you need to find a way to kill Cody. He has been the superstar carry for this team. Afro and Meteos do a lot to get him ahead, but once he gets those leads, he runs with it pretty effectively, so they need to find a way, get to Cody. Apollo and Hakuho like doing counter picks, so that should align well with what they like doing anyways. Just need to make sure they execute on it.
Again, it's a third-place battle, but with implications of a possible first-round bye. There's a lot riding on it for both of these teams, both being new orgs as well to the North American LCS.
Yeah, and a lot of my predictions in this game does come down to trends. We had that line for Clutch Gaming where they beat everyone below them and lose to everyone above them. They violated that once by beating Echo Fox, but then they turned around later that week and lost to Team Liquid. 100 Thieves is another team they lost to the first time they played, and I think 100 Thieves has gotten a lot better since then.
And that victory over Echo Fox, like Echo Fox have been struggling a lot recently to the point where you're starting to see some changes come in with their lineup, so it's hard to read too far into that as how much was like Clutch Gaming really stepping up and beating someone above them versus a struggling opponent.
10 games left in the regular season. We get 5 of them today. It's time to get into that first one, so we're going to toss up to the casters to get into the games.